Are you ready? Go!
And we're off. And it looks as though Cambridge might just have got away slightly better. Difficult to tell from this angle.
Cambridge were just slightly sharper off the start. They picked up the first stroke earlier and they went off at 42.
Absolutely vital for Cambridge, and they are up. There's no doubt about that. From our helicopter shot, we can see that Cambridge are probably a canvas up now as they come along the Fulham Wall, and they've got the advantage of the Middlesex Bend in the early stage of this race. Slightly more than a canvas now for Cambridge.
Cambridge Cox also coming across now towards Oxford Station.
And Oxford are holding them now after that early spurt by Cambridge. Oxford have perhaps pulled back a fraction. It's absolutely vital for Cambridge to get well up in the first mile if they're to have any chance. Ideally, of course, they've got to get clear water between themselves and Oxford. And if they do, they are then entitled to take Oxford's water and will then themselves have the advantage of the Surrey Bend. And as you can see, Cambridge are really putting it all in now, and it's very nearly half a length between them. Still at the Fulham Wall.
Cambridge obviously doing everything to make the most of this start. Catch is very sharp. Oxford, however, now trying to draw out the length and settle into a rhythm and at the same time use their power and strength. The crews are now very close.
Right.
And in fact, the Cambridge crew now, the Cambridge Cox Bernstein, is taking Cambridge over very, very close indeed to the Oxford boat and trying clearly to force Sue Brown and the Oxford boat out of the better water. And they've got at least half a length lead. Passing the Fulham football ground now. Well, this has the makings of a marvellous race. Oxford are holding on to them. They're still half a length down, and they have got to hold on if they're to prevent Cambridge taking their water to get the advantage of the Surrey Bend.
Oxford are obviously making an effort now. They're rating 37.5 as opposed to Cambridge's 36, and again you might expect the lighter crew to be going for the slightly higher rating at this stage of the race.
Great armada of boats following this race, and they create enormous wash across the river. It's quite extraordinary how the water rises up against the banks on either side after this little fleet of boats has gone by. Now that's the mile, and when that flag goes down, the first crew has reached the mile point. There it is, something like 2 minutes 33.
Touch. They're going to touch.
Well, because I got my time in total. It's 3:48 we hear. 3:47 is the official time. So Cambridge reached the mile in 3:47, and that is fast. That is faster than Oxford got there last year. The record time to the mile is 3:31, and that is 16 seconds better. But of course the conditions not terribly conducive to fast times with so little following wind. But that is a marvellous time gap for Cambridge, and it tends to show, Penny, I suggest, that this is perhaps a much better rate than people were giving them credit for.
Yes, I think it is. Oxford's crew last year was a superb crew. Remember, of course, Harry, at this stage of the race that there was a headwind on the course, and at this stage of the race today we've got a tailwind. However, Cambridge have got their noses in front, And I think they'll be doing everything now, positive motivation, to stay there if they can.
What it's turning out to be, Penny, of course, is a very, very good race.
Yes, it is, and I think we're coming up to the first crucial part of it. The crews will now start to cross towards the Surrey station. And this is probably where Oxford will have a go again. And indeed, I think we can see that Oxford are moving back on Cambridge as they cross to the Surrey shore.
So the early advantage of the Middlesex station has run out. Now the Surrey bend takes over. And this is where Oxford begin to get their advantage. Close-ups of this Oxford crew.
So Oxford are now pushing on, trying to use their superior strength and a more experienced crew. 4 ex-junior internationals in this crew, had a lot of hard racing experience in the past.
And it's clear now that Oxford are pulling the deficit back. And they're very nearly neck and neck at this point. It might even be that Oxford have a very slight advantage of a foot or two, that's all. Hammersmith Bridge now, very close indeed. Another timing point. This is about 1 3/4 miles. Here's the bridge. Another flag will fall there, and we'll get that official time for you in just a few moments. Now, from our helicopter, we can see that Oxford indeed have not only pulled it all back, but they've gone almost, perhaps even a length, perhaps even more than a length now. So that is a tremendous spurt from just below Hammersmith Bridge to the point just above it. And they have put everything into that, Oxford, and they've stormed away past Cambridge. And that is going to be extremely dispiriting indeed for the Cambridge crew. Oxford have reached Hammersmith Bridge in 6:53. This is a fast time. 6:54 for Cambridge. And this is the fastest race so far of the last few years. The great fast race, of course, was in '76, when an extraordinary record was set, and Oxford reached Hammersmith Bridge in 6:29 on that occasion, 6:53 this year. It's still very fast. And our helicopter shot gives you an idea now of the clearance between the two crews. A distinctive yellow boat of Cambridge, now perhaps 2 lengths behind.
Oxford, having pushed on to make the maximum benefit of their advantage on the bend there, have now settled back again to 34.5. Cambridge again will be working now on this next stretch to try to hang on and see if they can get back to get their bows just inside the stern of the Oxford boat before we come round to Barnes Bridge. Simon Harris there, the Cambridge stroke man. One of the smallest men probably in the boat race, and yet you can see his length and reach. Sharp catch, really leading this crew, and they're trying to hang on now behind Oxford.
And in fact, I think our helicopter shot may well confirm that Oxford have not taken very much more off Cambridge. It's still just a little more than 2 lengths, but they're certainly not rowing away from Cambridge. Now, can Cambridge really hold on to them and make another effort at the finish when the bend turns again in their favour? It'll be difficult for them now, but it's still a close race.
Both crews now rating 34.
Oxford stroke, Robert Clay, one of the twins in the boat. Behind him, number 7, Alan Kirkpatrick. Number 6, Stephen Foster. The 5, Boris Rankoff, attempting to win his 5th boat race, and looks at this moment as though he may well be doing it. 4, Richard Young. 3, Hugh Clay, the other twin. At 2, Nick Holland. And Bowman rowing on stroke side, the president, Nick Connington. The distance now perhaps 3 lengths. Our next timing point is at Chiswick Steps, when they'll have come 2.5 miles. And that marks the point where the Surrey Bend runs out. But at this point, of course, Oxford can take Cambridge's water anywhere they like. So the young lady coxing Oxford looks like coming home to another victory in the boat race. This is part of the great flotilla of boats following the race. The 2 boat club launches, the 2 University Boat Club launches, the umpires launch, press launch, radio, television, everybody following this great race. And Oxford look fairly smooth and comfortable on this glassy water. That's the Chiswick Steps flag you can see over on the Surrey shore. And it falls for Cambridge. We'll get those times in just a second.
This is where the pressure now really is on Cambridge. If they're going to make any effort to get back and get back onto the Middlesex station, it has to be now. Sue Brown, the Oxford Cox, has now begun to move over slightly towards the Middlesex station, ready for the next bend.
And the time at Chiswick Steps, Oxford 11 minutes and 2 seconds, and that is 9 seconds faster than Oxford reached the same point last year.
About 3.5 lengths ahead of Cambridge.
They're in Corney Reach now. Duke's Meadows will be coming up on the Middlesex station.
I think Cambridge are just sharpening their rate a little bit, making an effort again to get back on terms before the bends change in the other direction.
There's some 3 to 3.5 lengths between them. It does look as though Cambridge have made a little bit of a spurt. And may well be picking up on Oxford a little. But Oxford, of course, have them in sight, and when they see a spurt coming, of course, they can deal with it.
Cambridge Cox steering directly behind Oxford. In fact, I would think that he's giving Cambridge a pretty uncomfortable ride there. You can see Cambridge are rowing right in the puddles of the Oxford crew. Sue Brown has now moved right over onto the Middlesex station.
You can see exactly what Penny means from that picture.
Seeing the bend actually quite tightly there.
But this is still a very fine race, and at this stage there's not all that much between them. And certainly we know from the times that they're going at quite a pace. The next timing point, of course, is Barnes Bridge, and Oxford got there last year in 15 minutes and 6 seconds. And at that point they were 18 seconds up on Cambridge. No advantage at all like that this year. The great race of 1980, when Oxford won by only a canvas, there was just 5 seconds between the crews at Barnes Bridge. Cambridge.
Signs now of pressure in the Cambridge crew. They obviously put a great deal into the first 4 minutes of this race, and maybe are paying for it a little now.
Now Now back to our helicopter shot, and you can see from that that there's still roughly the same amount of water between them. Now they come to Barnes Railway Bridge, where they must shoot the centre span, and Oxford doing that now. And we are now into the closing stages of this race. Barnes Bridge is about 3.5 miles up the course. The distance of the race, 4 miles, 374 yards. You can see now how Oxford still moving across to take the advantage of this this Middlesex bend in the closing stages of the race. There's 10 seconds between them at Barnes Bridge. 15:10 for Oxford, 15:20 for Cambridge. And it's interesting now, of course, Penny pointed out that the wind was completely in the other direction last year, and they're paying for whatever wind there is now, because the time of Oxford has dropped below the time of Oxford last year. They reached Barnes Bridge last year in 15 minutes and 6 seconds, and Oxford are 4 seconds down on that this year, having been ahead of the Oxford time for last year all the way down to Barnes Bridge. All the way up to Barnes Bridge.
Oxford rowing very strongly there. Both crews have now increased their rate and beginning the last 2.5 minutes row into the finish.
And this now begins to look like a replica of the other race today between Isis and Goldie, when Isis won and probably were about the same distance ahead, perhaps a little less than this. It's about 3 lengths between the two crews.
Cambridge now sharply increased their rate.
Cambridge now much closer to the Middlesex bank. There you can see, out of Oxford's water now and over onto the Middlesex side more, and still something like 3 to 3.5 lengths between them. Simon Harris, Cambridge stroke, still trying desperately to narrow the gap.
Cambridge really have rowed a very gutty race here. There's no shortening up that we saw in the Cambridge crew last year. They've pushed and pushed and tried to stay with Oxford.
Well, by all standards, it's going to be a good boat race.
Oxford rowing very smoothly, very well now.
Now they're coming very close indeed to the finish, and Oxford are going to win the 128th boat race, but Cambridge have really given them a race, particularly over the early stages, when they did exactly what they had to do and took a lead. Now they come to the finishing post. And here's the post, and the flag goes down, and Oxford have won. Now Cambridge, here they are, not too many seconds behind, perhaps 3.5 to 4 lengths behind. Down goes the flag. And Oxford have won the boat race for the 7th year in succession, and Stephen Foster falls into the lap of Boris Rankoff, but Oxford have done it again. Rankoff has won his 5th boat race, which is a record for any oarsman in this famous old race. There he is, and undoubtedly receiving congratulations from the rest of the crew. The time was 8 minutes and 21 seconds for Oxford, 18 minutes and 21 seconds for Oxford, and 18 minutes and 32 seconds for Cambridge. 11 seconds between the crews.